As we discussed on June 7th, Tom, private equity firm Vector Capital has successfully completed its acquisition of Riverbed Technology, a provider of secure networking and performance products for the enterprise. With the completion of this transaction, Dave Donatelli, a former EVP from the Cloud Business Group at Oracle, and somebody you may be familiar with, has assumed the role of CEO, while John Taylor, previously the CFO at MarkLogic, is returning to set Riverbed on a new course. This acquisition marks a new chapter for Riverbed, which has acquired a number of other products and technologies in its quest to become a one stop shop for enterprise application acceleration. What's your take?
So I think it's interesting. First of all, for everybody out there, you have to remember there's two phases to an acquisition. There's when it gets announced, when everybody talks about it, and then there's when it actually closes, which is usually months later. And this happened to close in Q3. That's just the way that this stuff works. Secondly, new CEO time. So that means that Vector Capital obviously has different ideas in mind for the company than the previous CEO, which is fine. Dave Donatelli is a pretty good guy. I mean, he's held EVP positions just about everywhere. So he knows what he's doing. I think, though, that this is kind of an inflection point for Riverbed, because we've talked to them many times at Tech Field Day, and they've always kind of talked about a lot of their hardware platforms. I mean, if you think all the way back to some of their very first presentations, what do we hear about? We hear about their Steelhead devices that are on site. We hear about the fact that they're doing WAN acceleration. Honestly, their first biggest problem was they missed the boat on SD-WAN. They could have been the king of SD-WAN overnight with one simple decision, turning on that functionality on all their Steelhead devices, but they didn't. And so they were constantly playing catch up. And then they kind of pivoted into visibility and analytics as a secondary product line, which showed a lot of promise. The last time they presented at Field Day, a lot of people were very excited about that. They saw this as a capability that Riverbed could expand on. The problem, of course, is that when you're owned by a venture capital firm, which they were owned by Thoma Bravo and the Ontario Teachers Credit Union investing arm, which I didn't know was even a thing. You eventually have a runway that you're going to run out of because you have to service your debt. Like, this isn't a startup where you're going to burn through your cash. You literally owe these people money on a regular basis plus interest. And that's ultimately what sinks so many companies today. I mean, that's the reason why Toys R Us went out of business. They just couldn't service their debt. And so I hope that what's going to end up happening is that Riverbed is going to focus on the things that they need to focus on, and that they're going to be successful in selling them once they kind of get out from underneath this Chapter 11 stuff, which it looks like they're going to. What I don't hope is that it's going to mean that Riverbed's going to be chopped up and sold off into parts, which we have seen before, because that's a quick way to earn cash and pay down some debt and basically make the investors happy, so that when they get back to something that looks reasonable, they either spin it out on its own or sell it off to another company kind of quietly behind the scenes. Because that's the other thing too. Once you've been taken private in these kinds of deals, you are no longer required to report any of this stuff to the SEC until the sales are made and finalized. So a lot of times these companies can change hands very rapidly without anybody on the backside knowing anything about it. So good luck to Dave Donatelli and the rest of the Riverbed crew. Hope to hear great things from you in the future, and maybe we can get you back to a field day so you can talk to us about some of the cool stuff that you're working on.